welcome. Welcome to the forum for the candidates for mayor of the city of Anoka. There are, as you can see up front, two candidates this evening running for the position of mayor. I am Wes Volkanant. I am a member of the League of Women Voters, ABC, Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids area. I'm a former resident of Anoka, and I am now residing, as someone told me, across the border in Andover. I cannot vote for either of these candidates nor for any of the other candidates in Anoka this evening. The League of Women Voters works to promote the active and informed participation of citizens in the voting process by conducting candidate forums such as this and promoting voter registration drives for all eligible voters. The League does not endorse, support, or oppose any political party or candidate, but we do study issues of local, state, and national importance. The League is open to membership for men, as you can see, and women, ages 16 and over, and we invite you to join us. You can visit our website at lwvabcmn.org, all one word, for more information. The candidates this evening are going to begin by answering 3 introductory questions that have been supplied to them in advance. Their responses will be timed by a League of Women Voters volunteer who will give the candidates a 15-second time notice. The time will be up, and they will hold up a stop sign at the end of their 1 minute. We will take audience questions this evening. Each of those will also have a 1-minute response time. And finally, the candidates will be making a 1-minute closing statement. So let's get things underway with our candidates for the mayor of Anoka, Phil Rice and Shane Perry. And we're going to start with the 3 introductory questions. So, gentlemen, we will start with Phil Rice first. Please describe your background and community involvement.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight and for providing the community the opportunity to learn about the candidates. My background, I have lived in the city of Anoka for about the past 30 years. I've coached youth athletics, just about every sport. I had 5 kids go through the athletic programs and coached every sport they played practically. I have served as a volunteer or a paid on-call fireman in the city of Anoka 20 years. I retired about 3 years ago from that. I have also served on the city council for the past, well, almost 14 years now. And so I'm interested in continuing that, and I'm looking forward to this evening.
Thank you. Shane Perry, please describe your background in community involvement.
Like Mr. Rice, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the League of Women Voters. I'm happy to be back. My name is Shane Perry. I'm 35 years old. I have a large family, my beautiful wife, Nikki, my 7 children. I grew up here in Anoka. I went to school here, and I'm proud to be able to say that I'll always be a lifelong tornado. After high school, I attended Brown College, got a degree in radio broadcasting, and I came back to Anoka. And the reason for that is I love this city. There's no place in the world like it. Since graduation, I've done a lot of different things, sodding, different jobs, working with disabled adults and disabled children. In the last 7 years, I've been working as a numismatist and rare and unique coins, and for the last 3 years, I've been an operations manager. Before I moved out of Anoka, I was involved in the community through Boy Scouts as a chaplain aide, and also with the group of Revolution. Since then, when I came back in 2015, I haven't been able to be as involved. I've been more involved in raising my 7 children, but I have been involved in Adopt a Family, where we help those in need who need Christmas gifts at the end of the year. And the plan is to actually get more involved when my youngest twins start school next fall.
Shane, thank you. The next question goes to you. What are your qualifications and why are you seeking this office?
I'm running for mayor because I love this city, the history, the beauty, the sense of community. There's, like I said before, there's nowhere else I'd rather be. And these are just a few of the reasons that my wife and I wanted to move back here to Anoka and raise our children here. That said, that doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement. I want not only to work for the people of Anoka, but with them to find ways to handle issues that face us every day, such as homelessness, lack of necessary daily amenities, creating more jobs, dealing with development, redevelopment, and making sure that Anoka is a better place, not just for the next 2 years, but for generations to come. And I'll say it, I've never had a public office, but I have had numerous spots in leadership positions from as a child, from a patrol leader in the Scouts to a kitchen manager, now as an operations manager for a multi-million-dollar coin company. Through those positions, I've learned to run meetings, proper time management, compromise, all qualifications I think are important for anybody who's running for public office. Also, being a father of 7, I've learned other things as well, mostly patience and creative problem solving. And if having 7 kids doesn't get you ready to deal with problems, I don't know what does.
Shane, thank you. Phil Rice, what are your qualifications and why are you seeking this office?
Thank you. Well, the first qualification is living in, loving, and caring about the city of Anoka. And I think qualification-wise, my history is certainly a qualification. I have served on the city council for the past 14 years. My desire is to continue to help the city to be accountable to their budget, to be responsible spenders, but also to improve the city of Anoka. We are constantly striving to improve our roads, to find the money to work on those types of problems, improvements on roads, but also improving neighborhoods and in creating an environment for people to invest in the city of Anoka. Anoka's nearly fully developed, and so redevelopment is one of the challenges we have. If we're going to improve our community, we have to invest in it, and we have to see some redevelopment. So to continue to serve in that vein and to continue to be a responsible spender for the city.
Thank you. And Phil Rice, next question goes to you. What are your short and long-term goals for the city of Anoka?
Well, the short-term goals are streets. It's an ongoing goal. I think that as we look at some of our streets, they're 60 to 80 years old. And so you can maybe chuckle as I say that's a short-term goal because it's a continuing process. But we've been investing a lot of money over the past few years in refurbishing roads. And we have a couple of pretty big development projects going on now. So short-term goals would have to talk about the Highland Park neighborhood and the west side of the golf course being redeveloped. We have some sites up by the rail station that should be developed. Those fall into short-term goals. I think parks, we're challenged to find funding for development of parks, and those fall in as well. Long-term goals are this city's been here for a long time and it will continue to be here. And so we'll work to make sure that it's the best place people can live.
Thank you. Shane Perry, same question. What are your short and long-term goals for the city of Anoka?
My short-term goals is I'd like to work with issues that we face as a community every day. Programs, as I stated before, for the homeless community, looking to bringing in things that we do need, like grocery stores, bookstores, a laundromat. I'd like to create jobs within our city, better transportation options for the elderly and those who can't get around where they need to be. I want to take a look at development and, as he stated, redevelopment plans and improve them. I want to find ways to better fund or create more funds for our schools and create an even better place for local businesses and the people of the city of Anoka to live in. Long term, I want to see more homeowners in Anoka. That's going to require not only improving the roads, but giving people a reason to actually come here and stay here. We need things such as programs for youth in our community who aren't involved in sports to get them outside and interacting with other people, creating more commercial and residential opportunities while supporting local businesses, improved amenities, and I want to make Anoka the best place it can be. Safe schools, safe neighborhoods, safe streets for everybody.
Good. Thank you. We're going to turn to the audience questions. I'm going to start with kind of a fun one for you. It's almost a bit of a fantasy question. If you received a $1 million grant for the city of Anoka to use in any way the city could use it, what would you do with that and why? And this question will go to Shane first.
$1 million grant. You know, I think what I do with $1 million grant is I've seen some things I like out there, and as I stated before, I want to see something where the youth in our community can actually get out and do things. And one of the things I've seen that I'd like to bring into the city of Anoka is a year-round indoor park. Anoka gets very cold in the wintertime. There's not a lot to do except for maybe sledding and going on walks. Maybe if you can find a place to go and snowboard, something like that. But if we have, there's 4,000 young people, whether they're teenagers or children. And it's someplace that they can go interact with one another and actually spend time and have a safe environment where they can actually hang out and not just be wandering the streets or stuck at home.
Thank you. Phil Rice, would you like me to repeat?
No, I've got it.
Good.
Thank you. Well, our budget for the city is something over $50 million, and we're receiving grants to the tune of another $20 or $30 million as we're looking at improving Highway 10. So $1 million would be a treat, but it probably wouldn't be that practical to apply them to many of our city infrastructure problems. I agree with Mr. Perry that our parks are funded, but perhaps a little bit underfunded, and that might be something that could really turn things around for them and give them the opportunity to dream a bit where some of the other budgets maybe are larger than that, and $1 million wouldn't do that much for them. So I was impressed during the first forum that we had that Mr. Perry suggested an indoor park. I think that's a pretty unique, pretty creative idea. And so we'd see where the park board goes with something like that.
All right. Well, next question, let's bring it to a little more concrete. 48% of the city's housing stock is rental. There has been a moratorium on rental properties. Would you consider extending that into 2019? And Phil Rice, you get this first.
Yeah. No, I don't think we need to extend that into 2019. Our moratorium has been on multi-unit rental properties. And while I've been here for 14 years, it's been one of our issues every year of those 14 years is to try to look at what we have for housing stock, how we're approaching the problem of such a high percentage of rental properties within the city. And so we're constantly investing money. As we are, I mentioned the Highland Park neighborhood, a high concentration of rental properties over there. And we're working toward helping that neighborhood to grow, to be better, more attractive, and more owner-occupied residences there. So
thank you.
It's ongoing.
Thank you. Shane Perry, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
48% of the city's housing stock is rental. There is a current moratorium, and I'll take the caveat, on multi-unit rental properties. Should that be extended in 2019?
My answer is going to be short and sweet and to the point where I think at this point, I'm not absolutely sure about extending it to 2019, but what I do know is that I think that anything that will improve the amount of people who are owning homes in the city of Anoka is for the better of Anoka. We have an extremely high rate of rental units. It's one of the things when I've talked to people that it's one of the things they bring up to me is that we need more people who need to own their homes in Anoka. That's what they'd like to see. And if extending it is going to help, then I'd say yes.
Thank you. Let's stay somewhat in that vein. Shane, this will be your question. Anoka is a historic river town. In recent years, there has been an acceleration in the destruction of our older homes. Anoka only has a finite number of these homes. What can be done to halt this trend? And I'm going to combine that with another question that came in, which is, would you make any changes in the zoning code? So kind of a two-part. What would you do in terms of the acceleration of destruction of older homes? Would you be making any changes in the zoning code?
I think that one thing for certain that I do with the zoning code is that you have to keep up appearances on your home. In your home, you go outside, you have to have your yard a certain length. You can't have it past that. That's part of what we do in our yards. We should be doing that with our homes. And as far as what we can do to stop the destruction is we can set aside funds or move things around so we can actually help people who want to restore their homes back to what the original position used to be. We can set money aside through, every few years we can take a house and we can help restore it as a city. We can work together to bring those houses back up to par and where they should be because there's so much history here. And to see the houses falling in disrepair and being destroyed, it's extremely disappointing. That history is there for everybody. So anything we can do to make sure we keep that history there is extraordinarily important.
Thank you. Phil Rice, again, we're asking kind of a combination of two, what we could do to halt the trend of the accelerated destruction of older homes, and what would you do about a change in the zoning code?
Thank you. Well, I'll address that zoning code question first because we have, over the past 6 or 7 years, gone through our zoning and made changes and improvements to that code to try to preserve what we have and to protect the city from increased multi-unit rental development. And back to the older homes, of course, Anoka is a historic river town, and we have houses that are 100 years plus in history. It is what gives our neighborhoods character, and it is what gives our city character, as well as our historic downtown. And so preserving that is important. Home ownership is a key to that. People who own a home are certainly more motivated to do maintenance and to upkeep. And with properly maintained homes, they have value. And the history is part of what brings the value to our neighborhoods. And so home ownership is a key, and we continue to work on that.
Thank you. Phil Rice, in his opening comments, your opponent alluded to talking about homelessness. The question we received is, what would you suggest as a possible remedy to homelessness in Anoka?
Well, Anoka is the only city in the county of Anoka that has a homeless shelter. We have 60 beds designated as homeless. We're providing help to people. One of the characteristics of that homeless shelter is that when people move in, they're there until they find the means or the ability to be in their own home. And many homeless shelters will say you get 3 weeks or 6 weeks, and then we have to find another place for you. Our homeless shelter here says you're staying here until we find a place for you to live. I think they are solving it one case at a time. If other cities in our community, in our state, will step up and provide the same sorts of shelter that we do, we'll conquer the problem. It's a tough one. It's money, and it's willingness to have a shelter in your city. We are, and we're working on it, and we're experiencing success.
Thank you. Shane Perry, what would you suggest as a possible remedy to homelessness in Anoka?
You know, it's something I've given a lot of thought to. One of the things that I'm going to agree with Mr. Rice is that we do have the only homeless shelters, and they're fantastic. We have great programs. We have Hope for Youth. We have Eagle's Nest. We have Stepping Stone, and they all provide valuable resources. One thing we can do is make sure there's other programs out there, GED programs, job programs, things where we can make sure they're not only getting a home, because a home is important, but if you have a house to live in, it doesn't matter if you can't afford your bills. So we got to have the jobs for them to have as well. But one of the things that's very important, I was actually speaking with some of the people in our homeless community, and one of the things is there are programs out there, and they are there and they can be used. But when I was speaking to them, they had no idea where to find the programs. They'd never heard of them before. So if they can't find them, they can't use them. We need to make them easily accessible.
Good. Thank you. Let's go a little different topic area. Shane, this will be your question first. The Highway 10 solution. Are there other projects besides the funds that have been approved for the Thurston and Fair Oaks interchanges that you would like to see the city of Anoka focus on?
You know, honestly, and this might not sound as hopeful as I want it to be, but I haven't had a lot of time to look into the issue on Highway 10. I know that with our roads here in Anoka, there's a lot of issues that need to be dealt with, especially within our local communities and in our neighborhoods, things like that, where we can set things up so we don't have people driving 50 miles an hour through roads, where there's children, through school zones, things like that, where we can set up more safety zones, stop signs, things like that. But as far as the Highway 10 issue goes, that's one that I've got to look more into.
Uh, Phil Rice, the question again was related to the Highway 10 solution. Besides the projects that are already out there for Thurston and Fair Oaks interchanges, are there any other projects you would like the city of Anoka to focus on?
Sure, thank you. First of all, the state is looking at adding on to that project, and I think that the city of Anoka took the lead on this problem when in reality that problem isn't within the city of Anoka. It's really people that live beyond Anoka that are having a problem with Highway 10. But regardless of who it is, it's a problem that needs to be solved. And so the state of Minnesota is looking at extending that project to the east and dealing with the entrance and exit ramps and the river. Also, Highway 47 is and has always been really a problem in the city of Anoka. We look at those people who live in Mineral Pond and Dunham Oaks neighborhoods, and their access is terrible. It's frightening. They're almost limited to going right out of their neighborhoods because it's nearly impossible during busy times to make a left turn onto Highway 47. So that's another issue that, traffic signals maybe would be a solution, but the state has to help us on that because it's impassable.
Thank you. Phil Rice, this next will be your question. There are many who are addicted to opioids. Overdoses are only going up. What would you do as mayor to bring more awareness to this tragic epidemic?
This tragic epidemic is a big enough problem for our President of the United States to work on. I don't see the city of Anoka having a great impact on opiate use. We do have, and we support our police and fire who are involved in many overdoses throughout the year. Education is really the answer, and if we can find a method for the city to assist in educating people about the use of opiates, the dangers of opiates, the risks, the solution of having anabuse in your home, or I'm sorry, not anabuse, there's another medicine that can immediately reverse the opiate overdose. They're available, but they're expensive. And so as a city, we're certainly willing to help to work on what is one of our nation's largest problems, but it's bigger than us. We'll help with education and where we can.
Thank you. Shane Perry, same question to you. Again, there are many who are addicted to opioids. Overdoses are only going up. What would you do as mayor to bring more awareness to this tragic epidemic?
I agree. I agree with Mr. Rice. Education is extraordinarily important. It's one of those things where I don't know about everybody else, but they brought the DARE cop in, and you talked about drugs. You talked about smoking and alcohol and marijuana, and that was the big thing. And the biggest thing right now is opiates, and like Mr. Rice said, it's a huge thing countrywide. But if we get the education out there in the schools on why and what effect it has, but not only that, but we need to have the information available at every clinic, every place we can get our hands on it, and the treatment centers need to be available around Anoka to make sure they have what they need to help people fight the addiction.
Thank you. Shane, this will be your next question. Anoka had a history of grocery stores. The question is asking, what do you think about bringing a grocery store into Anoka?
I think that is a wonderful idea. We have 17,000 plus people in this city. We have 7 square miles with a lot of room here. And how we don't have a grocery store within our city limits is beyond me. I hope we get one as soon as possible. And that's one of the things I'd love to bring in here. It's one of the biggest things that we could use. And I think that anything we can do to get one in here would be fantastic.
Bill Rice, bringing a grocery store to Anoka.
Thank you. Well, we look at studies and say how much of households' money is spent within their own community. And ironically, every single dollar that's spent on groceries leaves Anoka and spends it somewhere else. So, we had the co-op down here. We used to have Ullman's over across the river, and we had a few of them over here years ago. The trend, of course, is bigger stores. And We look at Walmart in the grocery business. We look at Super Value and Cub. They need a big footprint. And while we would love to see a Trader Joe's or that type of a store in Anoka, I think that's the kind of footprint that we're going to be able to handle or going to be able to attract here. And so we continue to work on that. We've invited people. We have realtors looking at parcels of property that we have in town and marketing them for that purpose because it's a goal to spend those dollars in the city of Anoka.
Thank you. We're going to probably make this the last question before your closing statements. This is, what is more important to the city of Anoka right now? Building new or rehabbing, expanding, utilizing our existing footprints, so to speak, in the city? And that question will go to Mr. Rice.
Thank you. I don't think there's any doubt that continuing to invest in our existing footprints in the city is a much higher goal. We have to continue to promote maintenance. We drive around. Our whole system is sort of complaint-driven. And so unless someone calls and says their fascia's falling off that house, we don't often get a chance to see that. Our police are out driving every day throughout our neighborhoods. They can see it and they can report it. Our neighbors are our best asset on that. But we look to development. We thank people who look at the city of Anoka and come in here and invest in our community by putting up a building. But there's no question that preserving what we have is more important.
Thank you. Shane Perry.
I have to agree. I think that one of the most charming things about Anoka is the historic landmarks, the houses. I mean, I can tell you that personally, I love taking my kids for walks and seeing those signs that say built in 18 or built in the early 1900s, being able to show them the amphitheater, take them down by the river and let them see the historic, landmarks, taking them into the big white house. I'd never been in there before. And I took my kids in there and it was absolutely incredible. They loved every second of it. While moving on is always something that every community has to do. They have to move into the future. But for us here in Anoka, that historic quality, the historic charm is a big, big part of what Anoka is. It's a part of who we are with everyone who lives in the city. I mean, the Jetsons are great, but the Flintstones were better. You want to have the history behind it. And that's what we need to focus on, is keeping that, rebuilding, restructuring what we already have. And putting the money and the funds towards that, not all these brand new buildings that come in constantly. That's not the same thing that we need here.
Thank you. Shane Perry, you are due for leading us off with the closing statement.
Again, I want to take this opportunity to thank the League of Women Voters and for everybody who came out tonight. It's a privilege to actually be up here and be able to speak in front of all of you. And I appreciate the fact that you came on by. Again, what I want to say is something we really got to focus on is dealing with what we have that faces us every day. The homelessness, the bringing in the grocery store like we talked about, the bookstores, the things like that need to come in. And I think that together, not just going in there and trying to say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, but working together, we can bring that and make Anoka a better place, not just now, but for generation after generation to come.
Thank you. And Phil Rice, your closing statement.
Thank you. The city of Anoka is a beautiful and unique city. We have a historic downtown. We have businesses that thrive. We have businesses that close their doors. We want to promote successful business in the city of Anoka. It's a great opportunity. If you look at rent in our downtown area and then look at rents in other cities, Anoka's a great opportunity. Anoka's been here for 100 years or more. It'll be here for hundreds more. We're stewards. We don't own it, but we just do the best we can with it and pass it on better than we found it. My wife is a third-generation Anokan. We're a team because every time I get home from a council meeting, my wife coaches me on what I did right and what I did wrong. Before I leave, we discuss those issues. And so I've been here for a while. I'm very interested in staying, and I ask for your vote. Thank you for listening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters as well for hosting this evening.
I want to thank both of you as candidates and putting yourselves forward to represent the city of Anoka. You've been speaking to the voters of Anoka about issues tonight. You took the time to run for public office. Frankly, our democracy needs this type of citizen involvement. We want to thank the audience for listening and coming up with some great questions this evening. Can we show these candidates our appreciation?